Welcome back, Buccaneers fans, to another episode of Here the Cannons, presented by BucsGameday.com. I am your host, Caleb Skinner at CHS Null on X. With me, a special surprise guest, Darius Hayes, a fellow reporter at BucsGameday.com, as well as over at CommanderGameday.com, our fellow people over there up in the DMV at Darius Hayes 55 on X. If you guys go and shoot him a follow, that would be greatly appreciated. Bucs Game Day right here with you guys tonight on Here the Cannons, Sports Illustrated's one and only podcast and website strictly dedicated towards your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've got a lot to talk about. The 53-man roster is finalized. The Buccaneers have their guys. We've got practice squad all figured out as well, Darius. There's some shockers, some surprises, but first off, man, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. Football season is right around the corner. Just kind of looking forward to really getting everything started again, getting into it, looking to see what our team's got. So yeah, let's just kind of get
I love
into it.
I love that you're saying "were" because you're an Eagles fan, so you saying "were" is pretty bad. So if you guys are in the
Yeah.
comments on YouTube, or if you're not on YouTube, head over to YouTube, throw in all the shade, all the Eagles shade that you possibly can, send it towards Darius's way. But on top of that, even if you're not throwing shade Darius's way, if you're watching anywhere else, if you're watching on X, if you're watching on Facebook, head over to YouTube. That's where we get all of our tons of great content out. That's how you're able to ask us questions live on air. Get in your comments as well. We like to bring some of those up throughout the show, as well as click that subscribe button, shoot a like, click that notification button, turn on those noties. You'll be notified any single time that we go live, have post-game content, player interviews, whatever it may be. We got it here for you here at BucsGameday.com. But with that being said, Darius, let's go ahead and dive into this. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of drop off and list the guys that did make the 53-man roster, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we'll talk about that for a little bit. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to ride with two quarterbacks here on the active roster, Baker Mayfield and Teddy Bridgewater. We'll talk about that little Bridgewater Trask thing here as well for you guys. So if you guys got any questions, feel free to throw those in there, and we'll be able to answer them here later in the show. Running back, they're going to carry 4 into the season here with Bucky Irving, Rashad White, Sean Tucker, and Josh Williams. Wide receiver, they're going to carry 7, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka, Tez Johnson, the rookie, Sterling Shepard, the veteran, Ryan Miller, and then Cameron Johnson. Tight end, they're going to be taking 4 with Cade Otton, Payne Durham, Devin Culp, and Kokeith. Offensive line, they're going to be carrying 8. There's a designation there with Met since he is an international player, and then with wirfs being off for the first few weeks of the season due to his arthroscopic knee surgery that he had this offseason. So you could look to see the Buccaneers pick up another guy there, especially on the interior of the offensive line to kind of help shore things up. Looking at the defensive line, they're carrying 5. You got Vita Vea, Kalijah Kancey, Logan Hall, Greg Gaines, and your rookie Elijah Roberts there. Looking at the linebacker room, specifically outside linebacker, Yaya Diaby, Hassan Reddick, your 2 staples there on the outside. They're going to be bringing that pass rush with Chris Braswell, Anthony Nelson, and Watts there. And then in the middle linebacker room, we've got Levante David, Servassier Dennis, Jones, and Bullock. At corner, there's 6. They're going to have Jamel Dean, Zion McCollum, Benjamin Morrison, Jacob Parrish, Kendall Vildor, and Josh Hayes. And then at safety, they're going to be carrying 5 with AWJ, Tweez, Antoine Winfield Jr., Tyke Smith, Christian Izzian, Kayvon Merriweather, and Rashad Wisdom. And then in special teams, they've got their kicker, Chase McLaughlin, punter, Riley Dixon, and then the long snapper going to be Deckers. Any surprises here with you right off the bat? I guess we'll touch on it here as well when it comes to practice squad. But here, right off list that you see, Darius.
The biggest thing that I really see from this list is Tez Johnson making the roster. Drafted in the 7th round. Not a whole lot of has a lot of upside. Wasn't sure personally if he was gonna make the roster just due to the wide receiver depth and Bucs drafting wide receiver in the 1st round. So really nice to see the kid get a chance here to really show what he's got. Probably will play more special teams and a smaller role early on, but kind of hoping to see him get some more snaps, get some opportunities to really show what he's got. I know the small frame can be level of concern for some people, but just kind of looking to see where he's at with that. And then outside of that, I honestly not too many surprises outside of Teddy Bridgewater being the backup, which we'll talk about here. So that's like my overall take looking at it.
Yeah, it was interesting. Ted didn't make a whole lot of plays. In the preseason, he made one this last game, and we obviously saw his tremendous flip that he was able to throw, and everybody was in awe of that. But he brings a special ability that I think the Buccaneers are kind of searching for, and not only on the offense, but in special teams as well as a returner. So I'm excited to see him get more run, just like you, Darius. But overall, I wasn't too shocked by how things kind of unfolded. There are some shocks in there when it comes to that backup quarterback situation. But with that being said, let's go ahead and move into those guys who were waived, let go for various different reasons, whether that was just terminated contracts, waived from the non-football illness list, or anything else of that nature. And we'll start right there with Kyle Trask, man, somebody who was thought of to be, the backup quarterback, even with Teddy Bridgewater coming. Perhaps those are going to be their three quarterbacks that they carry over. Kyle suffers a shoulder injury in this last preseason game. Wasn't really talked about. It wasn't that serious, but obviously it wasn't that serious because he wasn't, no injury settlement happened after the fact that he was waived. So they're deciding to move on with him. And head coach Todd Bowles spoke today with the media saying that, the knowledge that he brings, Teddy Bridgewater, that is, the knowledge that he brings, the experience that he is able to come in and immediately having a profound impact on this team is going to be huge for them, and that's the direction that they decided to go. But yeah, very interesting. A guy just coming in, being out a guy who's been here for 2-3 years at this point. Very, very shocking to me. But I think the Bucs are fine in the position they are, especially if Baker Mayfield can play healthy.
Yeah, I kind of surprising to me when I initially saw it. Just kind of been a QB2, has familiarity with the organization. So I was a little surprised that they moved in this direction. For me, the move, I don't think it's such a bad move at all. I think for both sides, I think for the Bucs, it gives them an experienced backup quarterback, somebody that's been in the league a long time, has had a lot of reps, different teams, different places. Has even coached high school football recently, coming off of that. So, those things can always help. And then on Kyle Trask side, it kind of can give him a fresh start, be able to go sign somewhere, maybe earn a starting role or, another potential backup role in a new organization, new place. Sometimes that role can get stale in a certain place. And so sometimes this might open up a new door for him to be able to go somewhere and really get the opportunity that he's going to look for.
Yeah, and we'll go back with Trask too, because when Baker Mayfield was signed to that 1-year deal, it was a quarterback battle between him and Trask, and Baker eventually, came out on top, and we've seen what kind of has occurred since then. So he's kind of just stuck in that backup role ever since Tom Brady was here as well. So hopefully he's going to have an opportunity. He wasn't claimed off waivers at all. He wasn't. I guess he wouldn't have been, but still at the same time, he's not coming back to the Buccaneers practice squad at this point. In fact, the Buccaneers have already decided to sign freshman rookie quarterback Connor Bazelak back to the practice squad. So that is going to be your emergency third quarterback, Christian, who's over here asking on YouTube, who's the emergency third quarterback. Looks like that is going to be Connor Bazelak. They're going to keep him on, the practice squad unless something serious happens there. But let's keep it moving for some of these other shocking ones. Some guys that got cut that were kind of shocking, but some of them have returned to the practice squad. As mentioned, Bazelak's there. CJ Brewer has been brought back. Garrett Green, who's kind of impressed this preseason and training camp, has been back. Luke Haggard, the guard. Dennis Houston, another wide receiver. Nas Hatchmeyer. Nick Jackson, who played very, very well this preseason. The linebacker there, back to the practice squad. Tyler McClellan, another tackle, Lorenz Metz, who we mentioned earlier. Ben Scott, tight end, Tanner Towla is back on the practice squad. Another defensive lineman here in Adam Goetz, cornerback Bryce Hall, who suffered a dramatically gross injury at the start of last season's offseason, who had another chance, but they're happy to have him back here on the practice squad. and then another offensive lineman, and Michael Jordan is back as well. But some guys that have been, let go that have kind of not necessarily a shock, but could be seen as a shock. You look at a guy like wide receiver Rakim Jarrett, very highly touted coming out of high school, ends up going to Maryland, has some decent success there, then comes over to the Bucs as an undrafted free agent, has some playing time, but doesn't really do much with it. And then this year, or this offseason, this training camp, he had a pretty poor showing, didn't really get as much time on the field as he probably would have liked to showcase his abilities and remain on the roster. And then another wide receiver there, Trey Palmer. That is the guy we want to probably talk about a little bit because he was kind of on that edge, right? He was kind of one of those guys battling for one of those last wide receiver roster spots with the guy like a Ryan Miller, a guy like a Sterling Shepard, a guy like a Cameron Johnson, who probably could have made a name for himself. And it came out that the Buccaneers were, listening to trades for Trey Palmer, but instead he ends up getting waived and was immediately picked up by the Buccaneers' NFC South rivals, the New Orleans Saints. So what do you think about that there?
I was actually surprised by that move as well. I really thought he really was a lock on the roster. I understand the team has some new receivers that they drafted and added on, kind of wanted to see a look, but I thought his production, while not probably at the level that the Bucs maybe wanted to see, was still decent enough to be on this roster. Something
I think
that I thought was different, which is another reason why I was a little shocked myself. And I'm really not surprised he got picked up very fast by New Orleans. I think that'll be a good opportunity for him to go into that receiver room and really, get a fresh start, get some more reps, get some time in. Now, with the current receivers that the Buccaneers do have, I'm not really too concerned, especially with Emeka Egbuka standing in there and just kind of being able to really see what he has, stepping into a more elevated role, especially with Godwin injury so far. So we'll kind of see where that goes. So a little surprised, but I think for Trey Palmer, this could be a good moment. And for the Bucs, we'll kind of see. We'll see what Jason liked and the organization saw here with that.
Yeah, I mean, the Bucs had to make a move one way or another with this wide receiver group, right? Like, there's a lot of guys that are likable. There's a lot of guys who you like different aspects of their game, but at the end of the day, it's too hard to keep all these good, solid wide receivers on your roster, especially when you're top loaded, like you had mentioned, Darius Godwin, Mike Egbuka. I mean, you keep going, list on and on and on. So really hard, to let go of the guy who used to wake up pissed off every single day and would go out and get W's, the speedster. But that was kind of his thing, right? He was kind of like a one-trick pony, could not, not a big route guy, not a big hands guy, would make some contested catches, but they were usually go balls all day. Go balls, get Trey in space on these little short routes, let him do what he does with his legs. So I don't think that'll be too big of a miss for the Bucs, and I agree with you. I think him going to the Saints is a great spot. We know what their wide receiver room is currently.
Yeah.
And so he should be able to carve out a pretty decent role there. So happy for him. I wish it was somewhere else other than in New Orleans, but, happy for Trey. Hope he finds some footing. Hope he's able to kind of be productive like he was here in Tampa Bay and move his career forward.
Another thing, just one more thing about that. I think another reason that move could have been made, just for some fans that may be shocked or wondering why, is Jalen McMillan still is on the team, just placed on the IR right now with that injury that he suffered, the neck injury. We wishing our prayers out to him. So I think looking at him returning, that was probably a part of their strategy of we have our top four. And then maybe just kind of see what some of these younger rookies like Tez Johnson and some of these other guys would give us that opportunity. So I think that could have played a part in it, but we'll see kind of how it pans out for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And then some other guys I know some fans have become. Jose Ramirez has kind of been, a big fan favorite. He is no longer going to be a Buccaneer, not being brought back on the practice squad. So we wish him the best as well. We loved and enjoyed his time, his personality, his character while he was here. One that's probably not too shocking, Shiloh Sanders. That one happened even before cut date with the whole punch saga against Buffalo. That is what it is. But everything had played out, even past that game, I think Darius and I can both agree, probably with much of the rest of the fan base, that it probably was not going to happen there for Shiloh, and he would have to go out and search for a new home. But as his dad said, the Sanders are going to be fine one way or another, either with or without football. So best of luck to Shiloh and everybody else there moving forward. But keeping on that train, another highly, thought of, highly talked about undrafted rookie for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this offseason was big Desmond Watson out of University of Florida, 460 pounds. Guy played, I think, all 4 years there during his time with the Gators and made his way here. The Buccaneers initially, he got in here, he lost like 30 pounds like that, but they needed more from him, which is why you would constantly see an update with him every single day on social media. If you are on social media, about him just walking around the field, not being able to practice. He was let go, waived non-football illness list, and it does not seem like he is going to be making his way back with the Buccaneers as they have filled out their practice squad at this point. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it. I could have gone both ways, but I want to hear your thoughts, Darius.
Yeah, I think it's hard for the Bucs in this situation to really you really can't have a roster spot. It was kind of hard when you don't really practice because they're trying to really work on your conditioning. And that's kind of hard for them to really evaluate your talent. Now, there's another side to this where one could question if the Buccaneers actually gave him a fair shot. Just looking at it, not really putting him on the field. How I look at it is if we're not able to really practice, these spots are hard to come by in the NFL, and I don't really know where the Bucs could have put you on the roster, even temporarily, over guys when we just went through the list of guys that got cut that actually played. So it really, for me, it's just kind of really hard to see. I think there is talent there. I think there are prototypes in the NFL for that kind of player. The one that was right on the Buccaneers, Vita Vea, who probably, helped mentor him. I'm not too certain or accurate about that, but there are definitely players in the NFL that can help mentor him, coaches that can get into that, get him into that mindset of really being successful in this league. So I really hope he does get the opportunity to land somewhere where he can get that opportunity, maybe a younger team, someone who can take that kind of risk. But I think kind of where the Buccaneers are going, and just kind of the outlook of their team, outlook of the conference, it really was just going to be hard for him to make it. And sometimes these stories happen in the NFL all the time.
Yeah, and you can go back. There's been players his size, maybe a little bit smaller. You hinted at Vita Vea. Vita Vea was a monster human being, but he wasn't as big as Desmond Watson was. And they wanted to see, what he could do, because the talent is obviously there for him. Like, the guy kind of tested out of the waters. Like, for his size, especially, he can run the 40 like extremely fast for a guy who's 460 pounds. Like, the talent is obviously there. But when you go back and look at his tape during his time, for Florida, he wasn't able to stay on the field because of his conditioning, because of his size. And that's one thing you got to do in the NFL. You got to stay on the field. Like, what's that saying, Darius, all the time? It's like your best availability is your
availability. You got to be on the field. And that's why I say it was going to be hard for him, because you just got to play, like be able to be on the field. I know it's hot down in Tampa, so that, that weather and that conditioning, right? That weather, that might have been the best thing for him to really get on the field, which is why you could maybe question the Bucs side of it. But honestly, I just think sometimes, he has to get with the right organization, with the right coaches that can kind of take that time. I know that some organizations have taken chances on players that do that, like offensive linemen, defensive linemen, when they're trying to teach them the game. So hopefully he can land in some kind of system like that.
Yeah, nice. One of the nicest kids, man. That's another thing about Desmond Watson is he is a great character guy. Like, if you had the chance to speak to him, you would understand what I'm talking about. Just, very well spoken, good manners, just very well rounded type of individual. So that's part of the job though here. Like when you're going through these 50, you're going through these roster cuts, it's so tough because you bring in such great people first and foremost before you even get to the player on the field, and then having to like break their dreams, break what they have envisioned for themselves moving forward. And all these guys have probably been dreaming of being in the NFL since they were kids for the most part. So really, really tough there for a guy like Desmond Watson, who is a great player, but it's the weight, man, and he just couldn't shut it, and that's understandable. And then we'll keep it moving here because we don't need to sit on Watson for too long. But another guy that the Buccaneers signed this offseason was linebacker Anthony Walker Jr. They signed him from Miami after he was a free agent, really close friend of Levante David, expecting him to kind of be one of those outside linebackers that can cover, replace a guy like like KJ last year, JJ Russell last year for the Buccaneers. And we were excited. When is he going to get on the field? Oh, he's injured. Okay, well, what's the update on that injury? We never got anything. He never returned to the field at all through training camp or the preseason. And so eventually he was terminated on the non-football injury list. So I'm very intrigued to know what that injury was, how it happened. But as it has recently come out, is he is already going to be heading to Indianapolis to work out with the Colts because he is fully healthy. So I'm very interested to know, the dynamics of what happened there, why it fell apart, why he's not being able to be brought back. Is it something that, the Buccaneers front office can't trust him with, or whatever it may be? But that could be a huge shot to that linebacker depth in the room, even though they do like some of these guys that they brought back here on the practice squad.
That reminds me of a very similar story with another former Tampa Bay Buccaneers linebacker. This reminds me of Devin White's situation. Devin White went to Philadelphia, started all the way through training camp, all the way through preseason, and at the end of it, he was just basically cut and let go from the team. Never really got a huge reason as to why, just kind of removed himself from the roster. So really just kind of interesting to see those dynamics of how that works with certain teams and how they move with certain players. Not really knowing the situation, it's kind of hard to really speculate on what may have happened, what may have went wrong. I know sometimes injuries being able to play a part. My take probably is just, I think maybe the Bucs were just looking at availability. They're not really hurting at linebacker right now. You got a solid core in front of you. I know they were looking, to get some more depth in there, get some a run stopping linebacker in there, and I know Walker was decent at that. So I think maybe that's kind of what they were looking at, but not really being able to really see him on the field either can also play a part in these decisions. And also kind of trying to give him some time to really get time to play too, because some injuries are longer, they're shorter than others. They might not have just worked out, and sometimes you got to make these decisions. Maybe give guys an opportunity that you've seen that have flashed. And then for Anthony Walker, he's going to go to Indianapolis, get a real chance to work with them and maybe make the team there. So kind of get to see kind of what he can do there.
Yeah, just a lot of things unfolding, and we'll just shout out some quick names here before we move on that the Buccaneers fans out there might know that are not returning. So Jose Ramirez, we mentioned, running back Owen Wright, who the Buccaneers picked up, looked pretty good in their second preseason game against the Steelers. Suo Peta, who was brought in as a backup offensive tackle too. He was actually, or not tackle, guard last year to kind of compete with Ben Bredesen for the offensive guard spot. He suffered a torn ACL right at the start of training camp last season, was out all season last year. Still hadn't made it onto the field this year. Wanted to get a chance to prove himself that he could still be on the team. He will no longer be here. And then you look at guys like a Tyreek Thunderberg at cornerback. He was waived on the injured list. Linebacker Antonio Greer Jr., center Jake Majors, and then Roman Perotti, who was playing cornerback and had that pick six late in that Steelers game, I believe, was also waived and injured. But outside of that, we'll move on here. to the injuries we go. Good news. We'll start with the good news on the injury side of things. There's been 2 past physicals, and they're 2 of your biggest stars in Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs. Tristan Wirfs, it's kind of already been speculated that he'll be out probably the first 3 to 4 games. And it was just announced today by Todd Bowles when he spoke to the media that Godwin could make a return potentially in weeks 2 through 5 is kind of what Todd Bowles is hinting at and giving us. Don't mark me down as being solid on that. That could change at any moment. I mean, despite them passing their physicals, it just means they're well on their way. So they were able to be pulled off that physically unable to perform list, that PUP list that everybody talks about. But it does not mean that they're going to be starting week 1, guys. So temper your expectations for that. But it's good news overall, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's great news to get this kind of news, especially with the amount of games that they were projected to miss, and they still might miss some of those games. But I think when you're a roster that's built for Super Bowl contention, it's okay to not rush players back, especially off those kind of injuries, especially Chris Godwin. An ACL injury is not the most easy thing to come back from.
Dislocated
ankle. Dislocated ankle. Sorry about that.
The ACL was 2-3 years ago.
2-3 years, yes. It's been a couple of injuries, but those type of injuries aren't the easiest thing to come back from. We've seen players come back and not even be at 100%. And I just think with the way that they drafted, the way that they prepared for this, we already know what Chris Godwin can do. He's proven himself at every level since he's been in this league. So I've kind of, if I were Todd Bowles and the staff, I kind of roll them in. I know there needs to be familiarity with the system and the new offense, but just kind of really giving him some time. And same with Tristan Wirfs. I mean, that's your best offensive lineman, and you kind of want to make sure that you're really ready to go at that position because Baker Mayfield's going to need the protection. He had a great year last year, and you kind of want that same, if not better, numbers this year. And I think he's the anchor of it, most important piece. So very good news for the Bucs on that front, especially with these 2 specific players.
Yeah, just to reiterate you, I mean, what you said earlier about you don't want to rush these guys back early in the season if you are one of these teams that can be seen as a Super Bowl contender, because if you bring them back too early, they end up getting hurt again. They miss the second half of the season, or they get even more seriously injured and are out for the rest of the season. Your goals could ultimately go up in flames at that point because you're expecting these guys to help contribute later as the season goes on, especially with these 2 guys. Tristan Wirfs blocking Baker Mayfield's blindside, as you had mentioned. Yeah, Charlie Heck is in there. He's been doing a serviceable job, but he was brought in there to be a swing backup tackle, not your starting blindside Baker Mayfield blocker. And then, yes, you've got a loaded wide receiver room, but wouldn't it be nice to have Chris, in there to go along with it? And then you can run 4 wide receivers wide with Jalen McMillan after week 9, obviously, but Jalen, Emeka, Chris, and Mike, that's not going to be very fun to go against if you're an opposing defense or secondary, needless to say there. But great to hear that those 2 are making their way back. They're fighting through their rehab. They're fighting through their conditioning, getting comfortable with getting back up to game speed, game level, the physicality nature of it all. Huge news there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So just continue to monitor the situation like we are over at BucsGameday.com. But there is some less than ideal news on the injury front for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that comes from the tight end position with starting tight end Cade Otton. Obviously, we all know Otton's missed several practices this offseason with a hamstring injury. Buccaneers wanted to take it easy on him, and then they bring him back, and then he immediately gets injured again. Not a hamstring injury, another leg injury, according to Todd Bowles. But as we know, Todd Bowles likes to keep those things close to his vest until it is actually time for him to say what the actual problem is. Hopefully it's nothing serious, but there has been hints as well that he could potentially miss week 1. How big of a shot would that be to the Buccaneers? And how worried are you that, these injuries that are lingering around for Cade could go further and stretch into the season?
I'm always a guy that is if you really want to get to where you need to go, play it safe. So for a guy like Cade Otton, I just think if you're hurt, and we don't know the severity of the injury, but if you're hurt, don't play because you can only make it worse. There's not too many injuries I've seen where playing on it makes it better. I know there's things that you can play through in this league, and during the playoffs times, I'm all for that. But when it's in the regular season, it's week one. It's a 17 game season. It's a long marathon. It's not
Mhm.
a short sprint. So, for Kadon, I wish that he just would take his time through, get the recovery. Bucks training staff just work on him, make sure that he's good to go. To your question of impact. Of course, it impacts them early. They're just really young at that position as well.
Mhm.
So it's going to take away a weapon that Baker Mayfield could use. But we've seen Baker Mayfield be um, really good with and without him. He also has a really good running game
Mhm.
with Bucky Irvin and Rashad White in the backfield. So really, if you have to kind of change the offense to really rely on the run game while you wait for your weapons to get back and kind of get that offense really going, that's probably what can be the most important thing. But too much of a concern, not yet. We'll kind of see where it goes. But for
Mhm.
week one, not really concerned that much.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And his injury, the Buccaneers have probably two tight ends. Coke Keith is not really one of those guys that's going to go out there and start at tight end for the Buccaneers in Cade's absence. He's kind of a special teams guru at this point. So you would see more of a Payne Durham, who's kind of more of a balanced type tight end, can block, in line, catch the ball, caught some pretty amazing passes. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got Devin Colt, the former seventh round draft pick out of Washington, who the Bucs took in 2024, who is just a, I guess, wide receiver playing the playing the tight end position because he's got a huge body. So it would be kind of weird to see him line up at wide receiver all the time. But that's kind of how he plays. He's good at running routes, knows how to separate off defenders. Kind of his thing coming out of college was he makes easy catches look hard. He drops easy catches, but he makes the really difficult ones. So you'll see more of those two probably swapped in and out if Cade is expected to miss time. Depending on how much time that is, who knows? The Bucs go somewhere, find some cheap option, maybe in the veteran free agent market, whatever it may be. But I highly, highly doubt that happens. I think Cade will be fine. They're being precautious with him. Darius, you got something?
Another just kind of, I know you talked about just the split between the two guys. Devin Cope did make some big plays last year
Mm-hmm.
as a rookie. So maybe giving him another opportunity just to kind of go out there and really see what you got. I know Cage your guy, the high volume, but you also got to be um, in this league. Have your backups can also be ready to be starters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think giving a guy like that where you've seen potential and you see the talent, uh, kind of giving him just opportunities to kind of show you, um, and then kind of know where you're at. So by mid-season, if the injury still an issue, if you're Jason Light, you can start getting on the phone, making calls, see what you can do, see who you can bring in. So just kind of giving younger guys a chance too. You really don't know what you have till you put them on the field. So.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think that's about all we got for you guys. We did a little bit of a broad overview of what was going on with the 53 man, those cuts, who was back on the practice squad. If you guys weren't here with us, go back and watch the earlier part of the show once we do hop off the live version of this for you guys. But without going too much in depth, we kind of wanted to hit, the highlight areas that were out there. We did a pretty dang bang up job, if you ask me there, Darius.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Kind of just going through the roster, you always see some things that like are somewhat surprising to you. I think the Bucks are in a good state right now.
Mhm.
As the season goes along, early season, there might be some bumps in the road. That's expected anyway. So kind of just looking forward to really seeing once you really get fully healthy, really seeing what this team can be, especially once you get into the later half of the season. So it'll be
Absolutely.
interesting to watch.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more there, man. The Buccaneers are sitting pretty. I mean, I'm looking at their, two deep right now. I'm just like very excited about it. It looks really nice. Pretty solid across the board. And then who they were able to bring back there on the practice squad, pretty solid guys too. You want some good guys back there for going up against the practice. So those guys, they don't get paid as much as the stars or the starters or the backups, even the guys 3 deep on the roster, but they are a very vital aspect of how successful a team can be throughout the year. They're giving them looks week in, week out from opposing teams. So the Buccaneers are looking in great shape despite injury concerns, despite some guys being let go that they maybe could have kept and then bringing back. But overall, really, really good spot for the Buccaneers. Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs, they're going to be back sooner rather than later. But with that being said, guys, we want to thank you again for watching. If you are tuning in anywhere other than on YouTube, head over to YouTube, click that subscribe button, click that like button. We try to get 50 likes every single episode, so we truly do appreciate it, guys. Once you're subscribed, click that notification button, that little bell up there in the corner. Click notifications. We'll be tuned in every single Wednesday going live for you guys, and you'll be notified about it. We're also going to go live after every single regular season game and any other breaking news that may happen, or reels as well, since YouTube reels are a big thing in today's day and age. But with that being said, this has been Caleb Skinner at CHS Noah on X, and Darius Hayes at Darius Hayes 55 on X as well. Reporting here on Hear the Cannons with BucsGameday.com.